So over the last 6-7 years, I've given probably 1,000 readings to all kinds of people all over the world in all different forms, amounts of time, topics covered, dimensions reached, probably 1,000. And what I want to do is offer a story that bridges the idea of heaven and earth. It's one of my favorite readings. There are probably 100 or 200 of them that I remember keenly. And I'm going to share this one with you. I was reading for a woman back in Michigan, and I did the meditation and pulled through all the information, and what was discovered in the reading was that her mother was a Holocaust survivor, and part of it was about how she'd been raised in that environment and everything, and the dimension that the mother was coming through from was a plane of her existence today, where you could see her looking out over the globe as if she was in some kind of a celestial classroom or experience. You could see her light body, and of course, when I saw her and it communicated it, I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, basically, this is years ago, so I'm paraphrasing, "I'm relearning the virtue of the world." And so I write this down, and I'm asking her about this, and what she communicates to me is that for her soul to move on, she, in the form she was in today, in the space she was in, had to re-experience life. She had to get a different vantage point down here on the earth. And what was being done with her of her own free will, but in composition with force, was moving her and other individuals around to areas of crisis, famines, all over the world. And what they were learning to focus in on was the virtue of what man does for man, holding him afloat, understanding that goodness still operates down here. It was something she needed to see to cleanse her mind and heart from what she had been through. So this was an elevation that she was reaching. And wrote all this information down, and at the end of the conversation with her, I said, "Do you have anything else to say, anything you'd like to say at all?" And this huge red rose just took over everything and bloomed. It was so gorgeous. And I was driving on my way to meet the woman, and I was driving down through Pontiac, where I used to live in Michigan, and I was cutting through a particular area to save time. And it's not a great part of town, but I'm not scared about it. I've driven through it my whole life. Well, as I was turning the corner onto Woodward, there was an interracial couple across the street. A man who was about 45 with a woman who was probably 40 maybe, and they were obviously homeless. They were very likely on drugs from the appearance of everything. But they were fused together and they were bound, and she was not paying attention, and she almost stepped out into traffic, and he very lovingly just grabbed her arm and pulled her back. And I saw these two people, and that happened, and it touched my heart, really did. And I drove around the corner, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back, I'm going to give them money. I mean, I don't have a problem giving money to drug addicts. My friends and I have talked about it before. I don't have a problem. The way I look at it is, if I was living on the streets and I was doing drugs, what would I want? Well, I'd want more drugs because I'm a drug addict. And of course I'd want to be well, but the circumstances of my life in that moment, I'd want drugs. So I pulled around and I parked right ahead of where they were walking. And as they came by, I rolled my window down. I said, I just kind of went like this. And they stepped over. He stepped over. He did the business for him. And I handed him a 20. I had a lot of money back then. He got lucky. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said to me, he goes, you must believe in God." And I looked at him and I said, "I know God." And he said, well, bless you. And I said, no, bless you. And he stood his distance from the car, and he took it, and they came over, and they walked off together. And I got ready to pull out of the parking lot, and believe it or not, that same woman that I had been speaking to in that reading, taking notes, she said to me, I watch things like that. And it came out of nowhere, and it really shocked me. And I went to the reading, and I delivered the reading for the woman, and at the end I said to her, does your mother have any significance connection to Rose's? And she said her name was Rose. And it's important, however somebody perceives what I'm offering to them, I have to be the vehicle to receive it. And it comes through life experience that you understand, dimensions of time and space. And I never chose to be a medium because talking to the deceased was generally never that interesting. It was not something I liked. Sometimes it can be like pulling somebody through the eye of a needle, but when it makes sense, when it comes through very clear, when the person on the other side is willing to accept that death is not just some heavenly holding pen where everybody goes to, then they can communicate at a higher level with somebody, and they'd be willing to hear what it is you have to say. So I have a lot of clients who are willing and have accepted that and they're in that space with people who are deceased, as well as the space down here of pain and loneliness. So that's one of my favorites from the mediumistic realm of the deceased. So I just wanted to share that.